Hello, my friend. I want to talk to you about how the science of racism led to the Holocaust, because we know the Holocaust is often described as pure madness driven by insane leaders, and rightfully so, of course. But the chilling truth is this: it wasn't irrational at all. It was disturbingly rational. Hitler called it ice cold logic. Murder, genocide, and cruelty were justified using science, philosophy, and reason, while morality was pushed aside. So, how did one of the most advanced nations in science and culture become the stage for history's greatest crime? And what lesson does that hold for us now, today, in our current culture? Right? Humans sense something sacred in life, in themselves and others. Well, at least I hope that we do. Yet societies can subsume individuals into the collective, trading away personal dignity. In the 20th century, that tension exploded in fascism, racial cleansing, and genocide. The big question emerges: can a society rest on reason alone, or must the sanctity of life be an unquestionable pillar? When we think of reason, we often think of progress and technology, medicine, education, progress in that regard. But reason without morality can be twisted into something horrifying. Nazi Germany wasn't a primitive society. It was one of the most educated and technologically advanced societies. Its scientists and doctors used their skills not to heal, but to justify sterilization, eugenics, and eventually mass murder. Even respected intellectuals compared unfit people to tumors, something to be cut out for the health of the whole. It wasn't just monsters at work. It was ordinary, educated people, doctors, scientists, teachers, convinced themselves they were serving humanity when in reality, they were destroying it. This is the terrifying part. The terrifying part is that they believed they were being rational. This mindset, didn't appear overnight. It grew over centuries. In the 17th and 18th centuries, Western thinkers rediscovered the Hebrew Bible, which taught that all humans are made in the image of God, that life is sacred, that even kings are beneath the law. These ideas inspired revolutions, democracy, and the American Declaration of Independence. But right from the beginning, there was tension. Thomas Jefferson originally wrote that human equality was sacred and undeniable. Benjamin Franklin crossed that out and replaced it with self-evident. And here's the problem: what's sacred is unshakable, but what's self-evident can be debated, twisted, or even denied. For slaveholders in America, it became self-evident that not all men were equal. For scientists in the 19th century, skull measurements and racial theories proved, at least in their minds, that some people were more evolved than others. Step by step, reason was used to justify oppression. By the early 20th century, eugenics was mainstream. In America, tens of thousands were sterilized by law. Immigration quotas were written based on racial science. Prestigious scientists called equality outdated, a myth to be discarded. These ideas didn't stay in America. They crossed the ocean, right? Hitler himself praised Madison Grant's book, The Passing of the Great Race, calling it his Bible, calling that book his Bible. German doctors cited American sterilization programs at the Nuremberg trials as inspiration for their own, right? So you see, science, philosophy, and reason without the foundation of morality gave the Nazis the tools they needed. The Holocaust forces us to ask, can reason alone build a just world? History's answer is no. Reason is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or evil. Left unchecked, it can turn human beings into statistics, into experiments, into obstacles to be removed. It wasn't science or philosophy that finally stopped racism and genocide. It was outrage. It was faith. It was the belief preached by religious leaders and activists that human life is sacred. Human life is sacred. From the Nuremberg Code to the Civil Rights Movement, progress came when people held on to the conviction that all life has dignity because it is sacred, not because it is useful. The most self-evident truth is that not all humans are equal, because when we look at each other, we see differences everywhere, which is a beautiful thing. The truth that keeps society alive is that life is sacred, untouchable, and beyond reason. The Holocaust is humanity's darkest reminder of what happens when we forget that. And it challenges us today with a choice. Do we treat life as sacred, or do we risk repeating history armed with logic, but empty of morality? Because if reason is not guided by morality, reason itself can become the most dangerous weapon of all. And thank you for your time and attention.